If you can walk away from someone in front of a room full of people, you better be ready to live with what comes next. The crystal chandeliers above shimmer softly, scattering warm light across the grand ballroom as glasses clink and low laughter hums through the air. The kind of night where every detail feels expensive, deliberate, untouchable. And yet Ava Mitchell stands at the edge of it all like she doesn't quite belong. Her black dress simple, elegant, but unmistakably off-season, the fabric catching just enough light to reveal its age. Her heels worn at the edges from miles of walking city blocks she could never quite escape. Her fingers brushing nervously against the small silver USB tucked inside her clutch, as if it were the only thing grounding her in this room full of power. And then his voice cuts through everything. Calm, controlled, practiced, Noah Bennett stepping forward with a glass in one hand and a microphone in the other, his tailored suit sharp enough to command silence without effort, his presence alone enough to turn conversations into whispers. And when he speaks, people listen. Always, let's be clear, he says, a faint smile touching his lips, the kind that never reaches his eyes. Some things are temporary mistakes, for example. A ripple of soft laughter moves through the crowd, polite, expectant, and Ava feels it before she understands it. The shift, the weight of attention slowly turning toward her, like a spotlight she never asked for. Her breath catching just slightly as Noah's gaze flickers in her direction. Not cruel, not angry, just distant, detached, as if he's already decided she no longer matters. Ava and I. He continues, his tone smooth, effortless. We're never anything serious. The words land clean, precise, like a statement prepared hours before. Just something that served its purpose. And there it is, the quiet fracture, invisible to everyone else but deafening inside her chest. The room responds exactly as expected, a few raised brows, a couple of knowing smiles, someone near the bar murmuring, "I figured," while Ava stands still, shoulders squared, chin lifted just enough to keep the cracks from showing, her hand tightening slightly around her clutch, the edge of the USB pressing into her palm. A sharp reminder of something he doesn't know. Something no one here knows. 10 minutes ago, she was in a service hallway behind this very ballroom, laptop balanced on a rolling cart, fingers moving fast as she patched together a crisis response that would keep Noah's company from collapsing under a wave of breaking headlines. A problem none of these people even realized existed yet. A problem she solved. Quietly, without credit, without recognition, because that's what she does. She fixes things no one else sees. And now she watches as the man she just saved erases her in front of an audience that never gave her a chance to begin with. Noah lowers the microphone. Conversation begins to rise again, the moment already dissolving into the rhythm of the night. And for a second, just one, his eyes flick back to her, searching, maybe expecting something, anger, tears, a reaction that would justify what he just did. But Ava doesn't give him that. Instead, she offers a small, almost polite nod, the kind you give a stranger you'll never see again, and turns away, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor as she walks toward the exit, each step steady, measured, her reflection catching briefly in the mirrored wall, a girl who looks calm, composed, untouched, even as something deeper shifts quietly beneath the surface. Because what Noah Bennett doesn't realize, what no one in that room understands, is that in less than 10 minutes, everything he just said is going to come back to him, and it's going to cost him more than he ever expected. The cold air outside the ballroom hits differently when you walk out alone, especially when the sound of laughter still lingers behind you like something unfinished, and Ava does not slow down, not even for a second, her heels tapping against the polished stone steps as she moves past the valet line, past the waiting black cars, past the soft murmurs of people who barely notice her leaving. Because to them, she was never part of the story to begin with, just a detail that has already been erased. But her grip tightens around the clutch in her hand, the edge of the USB pressing deeper into her skin now, grounding her, reminding her that what just happened inside does not define what she knows, what she did, what she is capable of. And for a moment she stops at the corner of the street, the city stretching out in front of her, headlights streaking past, a distant siren echoing somewhere far away, her reflection faint in the glass of a closed storefront. And she exhales slowly, steadying herself, because breaking down is not an option. Not tonight. Not when she has already given too much to stay standing. Not when 10 minutes ago, she was the only reason a multi-billion-dollar company did not collapse under a crisis that would have destroyed it overnight. And she knows exactly what is happening inside that building right now. She can almost see it. The phones starting to buzz, the executives checking their emails, the first signs of confusion spreading like a ripple no one can contain. Because the solution she created, the file she uploaded, the system patch she executed, it was not just a quick fix, it was the only fix, and without her, there is nothing holding it together, nothing keeping the narrative from falling apart. And yet she walks away anyway, because she has learned the hard way that staying where you are not valued costs more than leaving ever will. Back inside the ballroom, Noah hands off the microphone. The moment already fading as investors shift back into conversations about numbers and projections, but something is off, subtle at first, a vibration in his pocket, then another, then three more in rapid succession, his phone lighting up with notifications he does not recognize, his assistant Claire pushing through the crowd with a look that is too sharp, too urgent for a night like this. "Noah, we need a minute," she says quietly, but there is no mistaking the tension in her voice, and he follows without question, weaving through the crowd into a quieter hallway where the music dulls into a distant echo. "What is it?" he asks, already pulling out his phone, his expression tightening as he scans the screen. "There is a problem," Claire says, keeping her voice low. "The crisis response file just triggered a system lock. The entire board is asking where it came from." Noah frowns, his mind already shifting gears, calculating, adjusting. "That was handled hours ago." He replies, more certain than he feels. "Was it?" Claire presses, handing him a tablet. "Because the authorization signature does not belong to anyone in our internal team." And there it is, the first crack, small but undeniable. Noah's eyes narrowing as he scrolls through the data, lines of code, timestamps, access, logs, everything leading back to a single entry point that does not make sense, a name he does not expect to see. And for a second he thinks it is a mistake, a glitch, something misfiled. Until he looks closer, until the realization hits with quiet precision, not loud, not dramatic, just undeniable. Ava Mitchell. And suddenly the memory of her standing there just minutes ago, calm, composed, walking away without a word, does not feel so simple anymore. It feels deliberate. It feels like something he has completely misunderstood. And for the first time that night, Noah Bennett does not feel in control. The name does not disappear when you see it twice, and Noah stares at the screen longer than he should, as if the letters might rearrange themselves into something more convenient, something that makes sense in his world where everything is controlled, predictable, verified. But it does not change. Ava Mitchell remains there in clean, undeniable text, tied to the only solution that kept his company from spiraling into a public disaster. And for a brief second the noise from the ballroom fades, completely replaced by a quiet, pressing realization that settles somewhere deeper than logic, deeper than strategy, because this is not just an error in the system. This is an error in judgment, and he feels it before he fully understands it. "Run it again," he says, his voice lower now, sharper, and Claire does not argue, her fingers moving quickly across the tablet as she reopens the file, expands the access logs, highlights the timestamp. It was uploaded from a private terminal in the service corridor, she explains, glancing up at him, right before the first alert hit the board. Noah's jaw tightens, because he knows exactly where that is. He passed that corridor earlier without a second thought, too focused on the event, on appearances, on making sure everything looked perfect on the surface while something underneath was already breaking apart. "And the credentials?" he asks, even though he already knows the answer. "Temporary override," Claire replies. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. And that is when it clicks into place, not all at once, but in fragments that refuse to be ignored. Ava standing quietly near the entrance earlier, her attention drifting not to the guests but to the staff hallways, the way she had excused herself for a few minutes without explanation, the calm in her expression when he spoke to her afterward, not nervous, not unsure, just steady, as if she had already made a decision long before he made his. And suddenly the version of her he presented to that room, the one he reduced to a temporary mistake, feels incomplete, almost false, because there is something else there, something he did not bother to see. Where is she now? Noah asks, the question coming faster than he expects, and Claire hesitates for half a second, just enough for him to notice. She left, she says, right after your announcement. And the words land heavier than they should, because leaving is not dramatic, it is not loud, it is final. And for the first time that night, Noah feels the absence of something he cannot immediately define, something he dismissed too quickly to understand. His phone vibrates again, another message, then another, the board requesting immediate clarification, investors asking for confirmation, the situation stabilizing but fragile, dependent on a solution that came from someone he just erased in front of a room full of people. And he exhales slowly, running a hand through his hair as he looks back at the screen one more time, as if confirming it will not change. Ava Mitchell, the name now carrying weight it did not have 10 minutes ago. Schedule a meeting with the board in 15 minutes, he says, handing the tablet back, his voice steady again, but not the same, not as certain as before. And find out where she went. Claire studies him for a moment, something unreadable passing through her expression before she nods. I will, she says, already stepping away to make the calls, leaving Noah alone in the hallway for just a second longer than necessary. The music from the ballroom swelling faintly in the distance. The night continuing as if nothing has shifted, but he knows better now, because something has, something important, and it is already moving further away with every second. He stands still, and for the first time in a long time, Noah Bennett does not wait for the next move to come to him. He turns, already heading toward the exit, because whatever he thought this night was about, it is no longer that, and the cost of realizing it too late is starting to become very real. The night air feels sharper now, colder in a way that has nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with urgency. And Noah does not stop to think as he steps out of the building, his eyes scanning the street with a focus that cuts through everything else. The valet calling after him, the hum of engines, the soft glow of headlights reflecting off the pavement. None of it registers the way it normally would, because for the first time tonight, he is not thinking about image or control or expectation. He is thinking about one person who is already gone, and the realization settles in with quiet force. She did not stay. She did not argue. She did not ask for anything. She simply left, and somehow that feels heavier than any confrontation could have been. He moves down the steps quickly, his gaze sweeping past the line of cars, searching for something, anything, a glimpse of her, a trace. But the city does not pause for moments like this. It keeps moving, indifferent, relentless. And Ava is already part of that motion now, blending into it, disappearing in the way people do when they know they are not meant to be chased. Across the street, Ava walks with the same steady rhythm she has held since leaving the ballroom, her shoulders relaxed, her pace unhurried. But inside, everything is shifting, not breaking, not falling apart, just changing in a way that feels final, like closing a door she should have never opened. The USB still rests in her clutch, though it feels lighter now, like its purpose has already been fulfilled. She reaches the corner and pauses briefly, waiting for the light to change, the red glow reflecting faintly across her face. And for a moment she allows herself to breathe, really breathe. Because there is a strange kind of clarity in walking away when you know you did the right thing, even if no one else sees it, even if the person who should have seen it most chose not to. And then she steps forward as the signal shifts, blending into the crossing crowd. Just another figure in the city, just another story no one will notice, until a voice cuts through the distance behind her, not loud, not desperate, but clear enough to stop her without force. Ava. Noah's voice carries just enough weight to reach her, and she slows, not immediately turning, just enough to acknowledge that she heard it, because turning back is a choice, and she does not make it easily. Behind her, Noah closes the distance faster than he expects, his breath slightly uneven, not from exertion, but from something else entirely, something unfamiliar, something he does not quite have a name for yet. And when she finally turns, there is no anger in her expression, no accusation, just a calm that feels more distant than anything he said earlier, more final than the words he used to end things. You left, he says, the statement coming out before anything more meaningful can form. And the moment it leaves his mouth, he realizes how inadequate it sounds, how little it captures of what he actually means. Ava tilts her head slightly, a faint, almost unreadable smile touching her lips. You made that part clear, she replies, her voice even, composed, and there is no bitterness in it, which somehow makes it harder to respond, harder to defend anything he did. The city noise moves around them, cars passing, footsteps echoing, life continuing as if this moment does not matter. But for Noah it does, more than he expected, more than he is prepared for. I know what you did, he says finally, the words more direct now, more certain, and for the first time. Something shifts in her expression, not surprise, not fear, just a quiet recognition that the truth has caught up. Do you? She asks softly, and it is not a challenge, not an accusation, just a question that holds more weight than it should, because knowing is not the same as understanding, and Noah feels that difference immediately, standing there under the streetlight, realizing that whatever comes next is not about fixing a mistake in a system. It is about facing one he made himself, and this time there is no quick solution waiting in a file he can open, no easy answer he can rely on, just the woman in front of him who already chose to walk away once, and might do it again if he does not say the right thing now. For a moment neither of them speaks, and the silence stretches just long enough to make everything else louder. The passing cars, the distant hum of the city, the quiet shift of people moving around them without noticing that something important is happening right here under a single streetlight. And Noah realizes that this is not a conversation he can control the way he controls boardrooms or negotiations. Because Ava is not reacting the way he expects. She is not emotional, not defensive, not trying to prove anything. She is simply present, grounded in a way that makes his own certainty feel thinner than usual. You stabilize the entire system, he says finally, his voice lower now, more measured, as if choosing each word carefully matters more than ever. The file, the override, the response, that was you. Ava watches him for a second, her expression unreadable, then she exhales softly, almost like she has been waiting to hear him say it out loud, not for validation, but for clarity. It needed to be done, she replies, simple, direct, as if the magnitude of what she did is not something she feels the need to emphasize, and that simplicity unsettles him more than if she had demanded recognition. Do you have any idea what that saved? Noah continues, a hint of urgency slipping into his tone. That could have cost millions, maybe more. The board is already asking questions. They want to know who handled it. Ava's gaze shifts briefly past him, toward the building she just left, the place where her name was reduced to nothing minutes ago, and then back to him, steady again. Then you should tell them, she says, and there is no hesitation in her voice, no expectation either, just a statement of fact, and it lands heavier than anything else she could have said, because now the decision is entirely his, not forced, not framed, just clear, and Noah feels the weight of it immediately, not just as a business move, but as something personal, something that challenges the way he handled everything leading up to this moment. That is not enough, he says, almost before he can stop himself, and Ava's brow lifts slightly, the smallest shift, but enough to show she did not expect that answer. What do you mean? She asks, and this time there is a hint of curiosity in her tone, not guarded, not closed off, just open enough to let the conversation continue. Noah runs a hand through his hair again, a habit he rarely shows in public, but here, with her, it slips through, unfiltered. I mean, telling them your name does not fix what I did in there. He admits, the words coming slower now, more deliberate, because this is not something he rehearsed, not something he planned. It does not change how I handled it, how I handled you. And for the first time there is no distance in his voice, no professional edge to hide behind, just honesty that feels unfamiliar but necessary. Ava studies him quietly, as if weighing not just the words but the intention behind them. And there is a long second where neither of them moves, the world continuing around them. But this moment holding still, balanced on something fragile. No, she says finally, her voice calm but firm. It does not. And she does not soften it, does not make it easier for him to accept, because it is the truth, and it deserves to be said that way. And Noah nods once, slowly, because he knows she is right. He knows there is no shortcut here, no quick solution. That erases what happened 10 minutes ago. Then let me fix it, he says, and the words are simple, but they carry more weight than anything he has said tonight, because this time he is not talking about a system or a company or a crisis he can solve with strategy and control. He is talking about something else entirely, something that requires more than just knowing what went wrong. It requires doing something about it. And as Ava looks at him, really looks at him this time, the question is no longer whether he understands what happened. It is whether he is willing to prove that understanding in a way that actually matters. The word fix hangs in the air between them, heavier than it sounded when he said it, because Ava knows better than most that some things are not meant to be fixed quickly, not with a sentence, not with intention alone, and she studies him for a long second, her eyes searching not for confidence or authority, but for something much harder to fake, something quieter, and Noah does not look away this time. He does not retreat into the version of himself that dominates boardrooms and commands outcomes. He stays exactly where he is, exposed in a way he is not used to, and that matters more than anything he has said so far. You cannot fix what already showed people who you are, Ava says softly, not harsh, not accusing, just honest in a way that leaves no room for misunderstanding, and Noah nods slightly, because he knows she is right. The moment already happened, the words already landed, the room already formed its opinion, and that cannot be undone. Then I will show them something else, he replies, and there is no hesitation in his voice now, not because he is certain of the outcome, but because he is certain of the choice, and Ava tilts her head just slightly, considering him, weighing whether that difference matters. Why? She asks. And it is a simple question, but it stops him for a fraction of a second, because this time the answer is not about business, not about reputation, not about the board or investors or consequences. It is about something far more personal, something he has not had to articulate in a long time. Because I was wrong, he says, and the words come out clean, without justification, without defense, just truth. And because you deserved better than that. And there is a quiet shift in the space between them when he says it, something subtle but real, the kind of moment that does not change everything, but begins to change something. Ava looks at him, really looks this time, and for the first time since he stopped her, there is a flicker of something softer in her expression, not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition that he understands at least part of what he broke. You do not even know me, she says after a second, her voice quieter now, not distant, just reflective, and Noah exhales slowly, because that part is true too, painfully true. Then let me, he answers, and it is not a demand, not a strategy, just an offer, one that carries risk because it might be refused. And for a moment Ava says nothing, the city continuing around them, a cab passing, headlights sweeping briefly across their faces before fading again, and she looks down at her hand, at the clutch she still holds, at the faint imprint the USB has left against her palm, a reminder of what she did without being asked, without being seen. And then she looks back up at him, steady again. If you go back in there and pretend nothing happened, then this conversation means nothing, she says, and her voice is calm but firm, setting a line that is clear, unmistakable, and Noah nods immediately, because he understands exactly what she is asking without her needing to explain it further. I will not pretend, he says, and there is no hesitation now, no calculation, just a decision that feels different from anything he has made tonight. Good, Ava replies softly, and she takes a small step back, not turning away yet, but creating space, a signal that what happens next is no longer in words, it is in action, and Noah recognizes it instantly, because this is the kind of moment that defines everything that comes after, not the apology, not the explanation, but what he chooses to do when he walks back through those doors. And for the first time since the night began, he does not think about how it will look, he thinks about what is right. And without another word he turns, heading back toward the building with a purpose that feels sharper than anything he has felt all evening. While behind him Ava watches for just a second longer, not hopeful, not certain, just aware that whatever he does next will tell her everything she needs to know about whether this moment was real or just another performance. The moment Noah steps back into the ballroom, the air feels different, not because the room has changed, but because he has. The music still flows. Conversations still overlap in polished tones. Glasses still clink under soft golden light. But now every detail feels sharper, louder, more deliberate, as if the space itself is waiting to see what he will do next. And for the first time in a long time, he does not walk in as the man who controls the narrative. He walks in knowing he is about to disrupt it. Claire spots him immediately near the edge of the room, her expression tightening as she moves toward him. "The board is ready," she says quietly, urgency threading through her voice. "They are expecting a statement. We can keep this contained if we move carefully." But Noah shakes his head before she can finish, a small movement, but firm enough to stop her. "No," he replies, his voice calm, steady. "We are not containing anything." And there is something in the way he says it that makes her pause, because this is not the answer she expected, not the strategy she prepared for. "Noah, this is not the time to improvise," she warns softly, glancing toward the investors nearby, already sensing the shift in his approach. But he does not look at them. He looks past them, toward the stage, toward the place where everything began less than 15 minutes ago. "It is exactly the time," he says. And before she can argue further, he steps forward, moving through the crowd with a purpose that draws attention without him needing to ask for it. Conversations begin to slow as people notice him returning. The same man who just made a clean, controlled statement now walking back with something different in his posture, something less calculated, more certain in a way that does not rely on performance. And when he reaches the stage again, he does not hesitate. He takes the microphone from the stand, the subtle feedback hum cutting through the room just enough to pull every eye toward him. Silence follows naturally, because people are used to listening when Noah Bennett speaks. But this time he does not begin the way they expect. He does not smile, does not ease into it. Instead, he looks out across the room, taking in the faces, the expectations, the assumptions that were shaped just moments ago, and then he says, "I need to correct something." And the shift is immediate, subtle but undeniable. A ripple of curiosity moving through the crowd, a pause in the rhythm of the evening, because corrections are not part of nights like this, not from someone like him. "What I said earlier about Ava Mitchell," he continues, his voice steady, clear, carrying across the room without effort, "was wrong. And there it is, direct, unpolished, impossible to misinterpret, the kind of statement that does not leave room for spin or repositioning." And people exchange glances now, surprised, uncertain, because this is not how these events usually unfold, not how men like him usually respond. "She is not a mistake," he adds, and the words land heavier this time, not just because of what they mean, but because of where they are being said, in the same space, in front of the same people who heard the opposite minutes ago. "She is the reason this company is still standing tonight." And that changes everything. The room shifts again, this time louder, whispers breaking through, attention sharpening, because now this is not just personal. It is significant. It is something that demands understanding. While all of us were focused on appearances, Noah continues, his gaze steady, unwavering. "She was solving a crisis none of us even saw coming, including me." And he does not soften that admission, does not protect himself from it, because that is not the point anymore. And instead of recognizing that, "I dismissed her publicly," he says, the weight of that truth settling across the room, heavier than any polished statement could have been. And for a moment no one speaks, no one moves, because this is not a controlled narrative. This is something real, something unfolding in a way that cannot be predicted. And somewhere outside, beyond the glass and light, Ava stands just far enough away to see the glow of the ballroom through the tall windows, unaware that inside, everything he just broke is finally beginning to be put back together. Not perfectly, not completely, but honestly, for the first time tonight. The silence does not break immediately after Noah finishes speaking. It stretches, lingers, pressing against the walls of the ballroom like something unfamiliar, something the room does not quite know how to respond to. And then the whispers begin again, softer this time, not dismissive, not amused, but curious, recalculating, because the story they thought they understood just shifted in front of them. And Noah does not step back from it. He stays exactly where he is, holding the microphone. Not like a shield, but like a responsibility. His gaze steady as he continues. "There is something else you should know," he says, and the room quiets again, drawn in despite itself. The system patch that stabilized our operations tonight. He pauses just long enough for the weight of it to settle. Was not authorized by any executive in this company. A ripple moves through the crowd, sharper now, more focused. Because this is no longer just personal. This is structural, significant. It was created and executed by Ava Mitchell. And this time he lets the name land fully, without hesitation, without distance. And the reaction is immediate. Heads turning, voices rising in low disbelief. Because the girl who was just dismissed minutes ago is now being positioned as the one who held everything together. Claire watches from the side. Her expression unreadable, but her posture still. Recognizing that there is no turning this back into a controlled message. Not anymore. And Noah does not try to. I did not ask her to do it. He continues, his voice even, clear. She did it because it needed to be done, because she saw something the rest of us missed. And there is a quiet honesty in that admission that shifts the room again. Less resistance now, more attention, because people understand value when it is presented plainly, when it is undeniable. And instead of recognizing that, he adds, slower now, more deliberate. I chose to protect an image that does not matter as much as I thought it did. A few of the older investors exchange looks, some impressed, some unsettled, because this is not the language they are used to hearing in a setting like this, not from someone like him. But Noah does not adjust, he does not soften the edges, because this is not about comfort, it is about truth. So I am correcting that, he says, and for a brief moment his gaze shifts toward the entrance, toward the doors Ava walked through earlier, publicly, and the word carries its own weight, mirroring the way he ended things before, but this time with a different purpose. Outside the building, Ava has not gone far. She stands across the street, her eyes drawn back to the glow of the ballroom despite herself, not because she expects anything, but because something inside her is still connected to what she left behind, something unresolved, and through the tall glass windows she can see movement, attention focused toward the stage again, though she cannot hear the words, only feel the shift, the change in energy, the subtle way a room reacts when something real is happening. And she does not move closer, does not step back either, just watches from where she is, caught in the space between leaving and staying. Back inside, Noah lowers the microphone slightly. Not finished, not yet, because this moment is not just about acknowledgement, it is about action. Effective immediately, he says, his tone firm now, carrying authority in a way that feels aligned rather than controlled. Ava Mitchell is being offered a permanent position within this company, reporting directly to me. The reaction is louder this time, more visible, because now this is not just recognition. It is change, real, tangible, something that affects structure and power, with full authority to lead the initiative she started tonight. He adds, and this time there is no hesitation, no glance toward the board for approval, because he already made the decision before he walked back in. And whether they agree or not is no longer the point. And as the room absorbs what he just said, shifting from surprise to calculation to acceptance, Noah sets the microphone back in its place, not waiting for applause, not looking for validation, because that is not why he did this. And without another word he turns, stepping away from the stage, already moving back toward the exit, because there is still one part of this he has not finished, one person who has not heard any of it directly. And as the doors come into view again, the distance between what he said and what he needs to prove feels shorter now, but no less important, because words in a room full of people matter. But what comes next, what happens when he stands in front of her again, that is what will decide whether any of this actually means something. When Noah pushes through the glass doors again, the night feels quieter than before, as if the city itself has softened just enough to let this moment exist without distraction. And for a second he does not see her, just the empty stretch of sidewalk, the passing headlights, the faint reflection of the ballroom behind him, and something tightens in his chest, not panic, not fear, just the realization that he might already be too late, that she might have chosen to keep walking, to let this night end exactly the way it began for her, unseen, unrecognized. And then he spots her across the street, standing exactly where he left her, not waiting, not lingering, just present, like she never needed the room behind him to define her in the first place. And he exhales slowly, crossing toward her with a steadiness that feels earned this time, not assumed. Ava does not move as he approaches, but her eyes follow him, measuring, not guarded, not open either, just aware, and when he stops in front of her again, there is no rush in his voice, no attempt to fill the silence too quickly, because he understands now that this is not something he can control with speed or certainty. I told them, he says, simple, direct, and she studies him for a second, as if deciding whether the words carry weight or are just another layer of correction. All of it, he adds, quieter now. What you did, what I said, what was wrong. And there is no performance in it, no audience to shape the meaning, just the truth placed plainly between them. Ava's gaze shifts, briefly past him, toward the building, toward the light still glowing through the windows, and something in her expression softens just a fraction, not because of what he did, but because he actually did it, because he chose action over convenience, and that matters, even if it does not erase anything. And the offer, she says, her voice calm, almost thoughtful, that was real too. Noah nods once, immediately. Yes, he answers. It is yours if you want it, not because of tonight, but because you earned it long before that. And for a moment the words settle between them, not heavy, not forced, just there, honest in a way that does not demand a response. Ava looks down at her hand again, at the faint mark left by the USB pressing into her skin earlier, a small detail, almost insignificant, but somehow it feels like a symbol of everything this night has been. Quiet work, unseen effort, value that did not need recognition to exist. And then she looks back up at him, steady again. You did not know any of that when you stood on that stage the first time, she says, and it is not a question, just a reminder, a line that separates what he did then from what he is doing now. Noah does not hesitate. No, he admits, I did not. And there is no defense in it, no attempt to justify, just acceptance. But I know it now, he adds, and this time his voice holds something different, not certainty, not authority, but awareness, the kind that only comes after you realize you missed something important. Ava watches him for a long second, the city moving quietly around them, the night settling into something calmer, something more real, and then she takes a small breath, not dramatic, not decisive, just enough to shift the moment forward. I am not coming back for the job, she says, and the words land gently, but clearly, and Noah absorbs them without interruption, because he understands that this is not rejection, not exactly. It is a boundary, something she chooses for herself, and that matters more than whether he agrees with it. Not like that, she continues, her voice steady. If I come back, it is because I choose to, not because you offered it after everything that happened. And there it is, the condition, not unreasonable, not emotional, just honest. And Noah nods slowly, because this time he understands what that means, that this is not something he can give, it is something she decides, then choose, he says quietly. And there is no pressure in it, no expectation, just space. And for a moment neither of them speaks again, the silence now different from before, not uncertain, not tense, just open, like something new is being built without either of them forcing it. And Ava finally lets a small, real smile touch her lips, not wide, not dramatic, just enough to show that something has shifted. We will see, she says softly. And it is not a promise, not a guarantee, but it is not a goodbye either. And somehow that matters more than anything else tonight. Because for the first time since this all began, what comes next is not decided by a mistake, or a performance, or a moment in front of a crowd. It is decided by two people standing on a quiet street, choosing what is real, one step at a time.